Welcome to TFIGlobal, the antidote to mass delusion. In a recent interview with Sky News, Nigel Farage, a prominent political figure, asserted that if Donald Trump were the president of the United States, Vladimir Putin wouldn't have launched a full-scale invasion into Ukraine in February 2022. Farage highlighted Trump's tough foreign policy stance, suggesting that the former president's approach would have deterred such aggressive actions. Farage expressed confidence in Trump's potential re-election in November, citing the former president's strong stance on border security and crime. According to Farage, people view Trump as a tough leader willing to confront challenges, particularly concerning crime issues in American cities like Chicago. Farage believes that Trump's perceived toughness resonates with voters who appreciate a leader willing to stand up and address pressing concerns. The politician emphasized Trump's successful foreign policy during his presidency, contrasting it with the current state of global affairs. Since he's gone, the world is now a much more dangerous place than it was before. So I think all these factors are playing for him, he argued. Addressing concerns about Trump undermining NATO, Mr. Farage added, "There is this sort of argument in Europe that he will blow up NATO. I don't believe any of that for a moment. What he wanted was for NATO members to pay their fair share. I don't believe that Putin would have invaded Ukraine had Trump been in the White House." Mr. Farage also said the idea Mr. Trump wants to destroy democracy is nonsense. This statement reflects Farage's dismissal of criticisms aimed at Trump's commitment to democratic values, emphasizing the need to separate fact from unfounded concerns about the former president's intentions. According to him, Trump's potential return to the presidency could have deterred Russia's actions in Ukraine and addressed pressing issues within the United States, resonating with voters who value a robust and assertive leader. Moreover, for the first time, Ukrainian President Zelensky publicly voiced concerns about Donald Trump's claim that he could end the Russia-Ukraine war within a day if re-elected. Zelensky, in an interview with Britain's Channel 4 News, deemed Trump's assertion very dangerous due to the absence of detail about the post-war plans. While acknowledging the possibility of electioneering, Zelensky expressed stress over the prospect of Trump unilaterally making decisions unfavorable to Ukraine. Trump's earlier statement promising to settle the war in 24 hours resurfaced, prompting Zelensky's frustrated apprehension. Despite avoiding criticism of Trump, Zelensky questioned how Trump would respond if Putin threatened Ukraine without the US's support. Zelensky maintained that peace requires the removal of Russian forces from Ukrainian territories. While weakened by a summer counteroffensive failure, Ukraine asserts its role in the negotiations. It is widely believed that a Trump victory in November is something Putin would welcome, giving him the opportunity at a minimum to hold onto his territorial gains in Ukraine and declare a proper victory. Zelensky invited Trump to Ukraine, seeking clarity on his proposed strategy to end the war. Turning to address the camera, he said, "Please, Donald Trump, I invite you to Ukraine, to Kiev. If you could stop the war during 24 hours, I think it will be reason enough to come. Maybe Donald Trump really has some real idea, and he can share it with me," Zelensky added, returning to face the interviewer. Not to mention, Zelensky is aware that Donald Trump's victory in 2024 could impact Ukraine's military support and negotiations. He has expressed concerns about the impact of certain radical Republican perspectives, the country's strategic alliances, and diplomatic efforts. Ukraine is closely watching the US political landscape, anticipating possible shifts in policy with the Trump administration. The Ukrainian government is actively assessing the potential implications of Trump's victory on the nation's security, military assistance, and broader geopolitical ramifications. If Donald Trump gets another shot at being the US president, he might shake things up big time. At least that's what about 20 people who used to work with him or know the ropes are saying. They figure he would pay back key positions in the Pentagon, State Department, and CIA with his pals, making them loyal to him more than ever. This, they think, would let Trump follow through on his isolationist plans and do pretty much whatever he wants, especially with issues like the Ukraine war and trade with China. Back when he was the president from 2017 to 2021, Trump had a tough time getting his even the most coherent ideas accepted by the bigwigs in charge of US security. He often got frustrated with top officials who didn't jump on board with his plans. Now his supporters think that if he has more loyal buddies in powerful places, he could push through his foreign policy goals way quicker, way easier. If Trump takes the wheel again, some think he would quickly slash aid to Europe and tighten economic screws on China. One of his pals said he might even slap trade tariffs on NATO countries that did not cough up at least 2% of their cash for defense. Unlike before he became president in 2016, Trump now has a bunch of folks he chats with regularly, including his ex-director of national intelligence, John Ratcliffe, Richard Grenell, a former US ambassador to Germany, and Kash Patel, who work for Trump and wore different hats in intelligence and defense roles. Though these advisors have their own views, they mostly back Trump's play and gripe that America is shelling out too much to support NATO and Ukraine. Right now, Trump is leading the pack for the Republican presidential nomination. If he wins that and then goes on to beat Democratic President Joe Biden, some think he'll be stronger, more experienced leader both at home and around the world. This is foreign leaders scrambling to figure out what a second Trump term would look like. But here is the twist. While Trump talks a big game about ending the Ukraine war in a day, 8 European diplomats aren't so sure. They doubt whether he would stick to America's promise to defend NATO allies and are downright scared he would cut off aid to Ukraine in its fight against Russia. Some even have a doomsday option scenario where Trump goes all out to weaken America's system of checks and balances by dismantling parts of the government and going after political enemies. Donald Trump has been talking up his connections with both Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky, suggesting he could swiftly sort out the mess in Ukraine, which according to him took a nosedive after he left office. The former president is pointing fingers at the current US foreign policy, arguing that if he were in charge, situations like the Ukraine conflict wouldn't even be on the table. In Trump's view, his leadership style would have nipped such incidents in the bud. After Nigel Farage, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and NATO in general, Czech President Petr Pavel has a suggestion as well. He suggests that Russian President Vladimir Putin is strategically waiting for the 2024 US elections to negotiate the future of the Russia-Ukraine war directly with Donald Trump, excluding European states from the process. Remember, Petr Pavel is the same guy who insinuated that Russian minority in his country must be killed. Pavel's statement implies that Putin sees Trump as the preferred negotiation partner, signaling a potential shift in the dynamics of international relations. The Czech president expresses concern about the possibility of compromise in negotiations between Trump and Putin, cautioning that such agreements could strengthen Russia's global status. Pavel emphasizes that Putin has made it clear that he considers the United States and not major European countries as the primary partner for potential negotiations. If Trump were to win the US presidential elections, Pavel warns of the likelihood of negotiations between Putin and Trump, irrespective of Ukraine or Europe's stance. What's wrong in that? According to the Czech president, such negotiations between Putin and Trump could lead to some sort of compromise that will notionally return Russia to the status of a key player, and others will have to somehow come to terms with that. Again, what's wrong with that? Pavel, who served as the NATO military committee head before becoming Czech president in January 2023, strongly supports Ukraine but appears quite skeptical about how Russia's current war in the country will develop, saying the world will soon have to deal with a new situation. In line with Pavel's concerns, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg also throws his hat in the ring. He echoes the expectation of potential bad news from Ukraine. Stoltenberg recognizes the importance of Ukraine's small victories in the ongoing conflict, despite the recent counteroffensive not yielding major progress. As fears of a stalemate with Russia grows, allies, including the US, are deliberating on whether to send additional aid to Ukraine. The warnings from Pavel and Stoltenberg underscore their frustration and nothing else. Now, with Joe Biden and Donald Trump neck to neck in the polls, Europe is grappling with the potential return of Trump to the White House. Analysts in Brussels are anticipating that Trump's re-election could jeopardize Ukraine's position, prompting European leaders to strengthen their defense autonomy. The looming concern is that a Trump presidency might lead to a reduction in US support for Ukraine, especially with Republicans in Congress blocking $24 billion in new aid for the country. During Trump's previous presidency, initial skepticism towards providing arms to Ukraine shifted when the economic benefits for US industry and assurances of payment from Kiev were emphasized. If Trump secures victory in November this year, Brussels may find itself engaging in financial discussions. Proactively focusing on financial aspects could be strategic, considering Trump's previous inclinations and the potential leverage that economic considerations hold in influencing Republican support for Ukraine. Donald Trump's way of doing politics didn't quite match with the big shots in Europe, making talking a bit tough. He was all about America first, caring about his country's interests and not big on global agreements. This made European leaders who like teamwork not very happy. The vibes got awkward and the relationship between the US and Europe got a bit shaky. When Trump was in charge, the usual friendship between US Republicans and European groups like the European People's Party or the EPP got a bit wobbly. They usually work together on things, but Trump's different style made them rethink their friendship. He preferred dealing with countries one-on-one instead of joining big groups, changing how they usually did things. In America, the Democrats and Republicans don't exactly see eye to eye. The Democrats lean more towards Europe's liberals and center-left groups, while the Republicans hang out with the center-right crowd. This divide affects how they team up with European buddies on stuff like climate change and human rights. People are talking about Trump making a comeback back, and that's making some folks nervous. Last time he was in charge, he did things in a way nobody expected. If he comes back, it might shake up how the US and Europe usually work together. The Ukraine situation and other global stuff could get a serious twist if Trump gets another shot running the show. Ukrainian President Zelensky's cautious stance indicates concerns about the US support for Ukraine under a potential Trump presidency. Insights from international security experts like Petr Pavel shed light on the expected geopolitical shifts and strategic calculations with Trump's potential return. Speculated negotiations between Trump and Putin further suggest possible shifts in the US approach to Russia-Ukraine conflict. The diverse opinions and strategic considerations surrounding the uncertainty of Trump's foreign policy impact highlight the complexity of assessing the potential consequences of his return to power. The potential change in US leadership emerges as a critical factor shaping the future of the Ukraine conflict. The possibility of Trump's return introduces a dynamic element that could influence diplomatic relations, security dynamics, and the overall trajectory of the conflict. Trump's statements, coupled with Farage's support, emphasize a perceived strong US leadership role in global affairs under Trump. This narrative aligns with the belief that Trump's assertive approach would position the United States as a significant player on the world stage.